Martin Luther King Jr., Cesar Chavez, Nelson Mandela, leaders synonymous with civil rights movements around the world. In the 1970s, Judy Heumann, Ed Roberts, and other activists started a movement that swept the country. No longer willing to accept the status quo, they fought the United States government for the rights of people with disabilities and won. In her memoir, Judy Heumann, the only daughter of German Jewish immigrants, recounts life growing up in Brooklyn, the monumental 504 sit-in at the San Francisco Federal Building, and her illustrious disability activism career, affecting change around the world. Welcome to episode 1 of Behind the Book with 360, with Judy Heumann and our co-author, Kristen Joyner.
Hey everybody, welcome, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Casey Kaler, and I am joined here by a few of my colleagues at Ability360. We have Lauren Worthington, Tony Jackson, Karan Gofsey, Jillian Carr, and Sarah Farrell with us today. Sarah and I will be asking a majority of the questions, but some of our other colleagues might jump in. With us here today are Judy Heumann and Kristen Joyner talking about their book, Being Human, an Unrepentant Memoir of a Disability Rights Activist. So let's dive right in.
And I really want people to read the book and walk away and say, Judy Heumann's a badass.
I am a badass. But all of you are badasses, so you know what I mean? That's fine.
Our first question comes from Ability360 President and CEO, Phil Pangrazio.
Hi, Judy. I just wanted to know what inspired you to write this memoir and what was all behind that happening at this point in time in your life.
Well, people have for a number of years had told me I needed to write a book, and I just thought that would never happen. And then Stuart James, who I had met when I was working at the State Department and has OI, eventually became the director of the Berkeley CIL. And he was friends with the company that I've been working with called Gravity Squared. And he had told Gravity Squared about my story. And so Gravity Squared reached out to me.
Two guys that I used to work with, and in fact, we shared the same mentor when I was still working in Hollywood as an agent. They went on to start Gravity Squared, which is a management company for writers and directors, and they also represent people for life rights like Judy. And, you know, I think so much of the history of the disability movement is not in history books. It's not being told. It's not really documented. And because I had a relationship with Judy and I didn't really have a relationship with others, and she played such a prominent role in the early history and still does today, that it was important to get her story told.
So Kristen and I have been working, is it 2016, Kristen, that we started working on this? Or 17?
I think it was 2016.
Yeah. Yeah. Long time.
Yeah. So I was living in Berkeley, actually Berkeley, California, and I was contacted by my agent. She asked me if I might be interested in working with Judy Heumann to write her memoir. And at that time, I didn't know who Judy was, and I had never heard of the Section 504 sit-in. And this was really ironic because for multiple reasons. One, because I'd spent most of my career working in human rights and representation issues for race and gender and class and religion and various issues. And it had never really permeated my consciousness that there was a disability rights movement. The other reason it was strange that I had never heard about Judy was because I was actually walking through the Ed Roberts campus every day to get to the Ashby BART station to get to work in San Francisco. And there was a photo exhibit of the Section 504 sit-in in the center of the building. And it was the building where at the campus where the Center for Independent Living is in Berkeley. And I never realized what I was walking through. I was just looking for coffee. And so when my agent called me and asked me if I wanted to do this, she said, why don't you meet, there's a guy in Berkeley, his name is Stuart James. He's at a place called the Center for Independent Living. I looked it up. I went to meet him. It was half a block from my house. It was this building that I'd walked through every day on the way to the Ashby BART station. So it was like it was sort of like a light went on from one day to the next.
I interviewed Kristen first, and Kirsten's a badass of her own. And she's a very strong personality. And I thought that was important because Judy's a strong personality. And it's sometimes hard to direct Judy's attention to things that you're doing. She gets sideways sometimes. And I thought Kristen was the best person to keep her intact. And further to that story, we had talked about Judy's love affair with her mobile phone.
I remember really clearly Judy saying to me, one of the things she said to me when I said, how do you want to stay in touch? And I said, do you want to stay in touch are you better by text or by email? And she said, I'm a talker. So you can just call me. But in any case, I spent the rest of the time doing the project trying to deconstruct why I'd had this huge gap in my knowledge about the disability rights movement and about disability, and why I had never seen it as a civil rights issue.
So I kind of have a follow-up question to that one, and this is probably for both of you to answer, but you touched on it a little bit, but the process of writing the book together, how was that, and how was, working together?
Well, it was a process that continued to change because we met over the phone. Kristen was in California, so one of my concerns was that we weren't near each other and that we didn't know each other, and that in order to write my story, she would have to get to know me. But at that time, she was working in an organization in DC, and she was traveling back and forth pretty regularly. And when she came, she built in time to be able for us to talk to each other. And so for a number of months, we spent a day and a half together each month, I think it was. But then she left her job and went to California.
No, yes. My husband got offered a job, then I left my job.
No.
Oh, New Zealand, yeah.
Didn't you leave your job in DC before he got the job?
No.
Oh, I thought that was what it was. At any rate, she went back to California. And then I learned that she was going to New Zealand. So I think the writing of the book has been, on some level, quite complex, because California was only 3 hours difference, but New Zealand was more than a day. And so, like, getting time, and she has 3 kids, and it's the whole, like, complexity in her life and complexity in my life because I was traveling a lot. And, but, in the end, we would talk, she would write, I would read, I would comment, we would argue, we would agree, we would go back and forth, and now we have the book.
I was really fascinated. I really wanted to understand how Judy had sort of sustained such a strong sense of who she was and her voice in the face of so many people and so many voices telling her that she didn't belong in society. And that was, and ironic, not ironically, and that was really interesting because, as Judy said, right in the middle of our writing process, I moved to New Zealand. So I moved to a place that was really different, where I really felt like I didn't belong. And I moved my family, so my kids, everybody in my family is going through this huge dislocation. And it really kind of brought up, so when we talked about not belonging in the book, and all the times that Judy felt like there was a, big barrier erected in front of her all the time, that kept resonating with me on a certain level, just sort of with my everyday life, that I felt like I was hugely dislocated, and also brought up lots of memories from my past. But I felt like I didn't have the same chutzpah that Judy had necessarily in facing these voices. And so one of the things that came out of that move was really, I became fascinated with really trying to understand how Judy had maintained that strength and resilience in the face of such adversity, and the whole theme of exclusion, and how she decided, no, it's not about me having to change so that I fit into your world. It's about the world needs to change because I know I belong.
I mean, you know, the bottom line is she's not from Brooklyn. So that's the problem. But
I lived in Brooklyn for a long time.
Not in your developmental years.
This question is for both of you guys, actually, but what do you hope that disabled persons and non-disabled persons take away from reading the book and watching the documentary?
You go first, Kristen.
I'm going to speak. I feel like I really wrote this hoping on one of my big hopes when I was writing it was that any non-disabled person reading this book would walk away with several thoughts. One of which was, holy moly, how did I not know this existed? How did I not know about this movement? How did I not know about Judy Heumann? How did I not know that disability was a civil rights issue? Of course it's a civil rights issue. Why have I never thought about disability in this way before? And then when they go out into the world, I want that light to be one that never goes off, that way of thinking never to go off, so that if they see someone not able to access something or being barred from something, that they say something, that they do something to change the circumstances. They move from silence. So I think discrimination, ableism, the ableism that I saw in myself, the invisibility that I had, or the gap that I had where I didn't see the Ed Roberts Center. I didn't see the Center for Independent Living. I didn't see disability as a civil rights issue. All that, when I first got approached about working with Judy, I thought to myself, is this going to be a sad story? What is this story going to be about? All of that can be boiled down to the discrimination and the ableism that exists in our society. And so I hope that that becomes an awareness that people can't shake off. When they hear about a movie or a book or about a person who has a disability and has done X, Y, and Z amazing things, that they don't think it's going to be just an inspirational story about someone overcoming a disability, that it's going to be a story about a human who has done amazing things, or who has fallen in love and had their heart broken, or who has changed the world. So I want that discrimination broken down so that people just see other people as humans.